Happy Tuesday, sixth graders. Excuse me. Today we're going to try something I've never done in this way. We're going to create this map. Now, the map has been drawn for you, the borders, the lakes and rivers, and the towns. Your teacher has probably handed this map out to you already. It's a 11 by 17 map, 17 and a half, excuse me. So it's quite large. Um, what I would like you to do right now is, just for the sake of getting this over with and just for the sake of storing it when class is done, I'd like you to fold it in half. So take the two shortest edges, uh, meet them together, and then make a nice, neat crease. Okay? Your teachers probably will show you as we're doing this, but we want the map to be folded in such a way where it'll fit into your folder with not edges hanging out. I don't want this to look like garbage when you're done with it. I don't want the edges to be all crinkled. So it's really important now that we do this first fold correctly. So you're going to fold it in half, short edge to short edge, nice crease, and your teachers will show you exactly what to do. Okay. Now, that's the first part. You've received the map, you folded it, and now what I'd like you to do is the following: get some colored pencils or crayons that you've brought. If you don't have any, please raise your hand and the teacher will help you to get that stuff. Remember, we're not sharing materials, please. You should have your own pencils and crayons. Markers will not work for this, they're just too dark and messy. So, color pencils or crayons, get those handy. You should also have your Chromebook as well, because that will be a source of information for you while you're filling this out. I'll give you just a couple seconds to get all that stuff ready for your teachers to hand out papers if necessary, for you to finish folding. And then I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so this is what yours should look like. Your map should look like this. You'll see on the map there's a series of squares, and they represent something. You have these parts of the map that have these little hatchings to them. And then you see these squiggly lines, some of which are borders, others of are squiggly lines kind of within the middle of the map. So all those symbols represent things. And we're not even going to worry today about putting those symbols in a legend or anything like that. We're just going to start labeling. So the first thing I'd like you to do, very first thing I'd like you to do, is very neatly in the lower right hand corner, down here where I've highlighted it red, I'd like you to write your first and your last name, please. Neatly. And when I say neatly, I mean as neatly as Mrs. Shipples writes. Okay. Next, grab a light color, such as blue or a light purple. And what you're going to do is you're going to trace over some rivers. Now, I'm going to go very slowly, and I'm going to tell you what to trace over. Now, what I did online is I actually ended up coloring on both sides of the river to make it kind of show up. So let's just start with the biggest river. Take your lighter color that you've chosen, that blue or that purple color, and just start up here and trace. Just trace this squiggly line, which is, of course, the Mississippi River, the longest river in North America. So start at the top and just trace. Okay. And then trace all the way through this kind of busy area of Minnesota right here, which is Minneapolis and St. Paul, and trace it all over here to the eastern edge of our border. All this must be traced. Okay. Next, I'm going too fast. Instructors, you can pause it, let the kids catch up, but I think they can keep the pace. Next, go over here to the what I call like the door handle of Minnesota over here. This little knob that sticks out. And you'll see that there are two darker um, elongated blobs over here. Those are actually lakes. They're smaller lakes, but they're important lakes. What we're going to do is we're going to start at the top of this lake here, right over here, and we're going to trace north. We're going to trace the border over here between North Dakota and Minnesota. This, ladies and gentlemen, is actually a river. Okay, this is called the Red River of the North. There's a Red River in Texas, but Minnesota has its own version right here called the Red River of the North. So once again, you're going to start here and trace neatly northward. It's okay if you go off the line a little bit. In fact, if you want to trace right next to it, that might be the best way to make it stand out. Okay. So once again, you're tracing from here northward. Then go back down to the start of that river, and there's another blob here, another lake. And now you're going to trace the river that's closest to where we live, which is the Minnesota River. So start at the southern end of this lake and trace very neatly on one side of the line, all the way here, all the way to Mankato, all the way past St. Peter, Seward, Henderson, Belle Plaine, Jordan, Chaska, Shakopee, into Minneapolis, St. Paul. That's the Minnesota River right there, folks. Okay. Now, at the top, there are two other rivers picked out. One is the Big Fork River, and the other is the Little Fork River. So here's the start of the Big Fork River right here. Start here and just push northward. Trace right along the edges. There's my cat every time. And pushing all the way north. Boom, to the border with Canada. Same thing for the Little Fork River. This side right here. Trace it. And then on the other side where it forks off. Okay. She's talking to us. Now over here, got the Big Fork and the Little Fork. Now over here at the top, I'd like you to trace the Rainy River. Now it's a border between the United States and Canada. It goes from Lake of the Woods, which is right here, to Rainy Lake, which I did not put on this map. But this border right here, starting here at the lake, and at the top, let's trace that whole thing blue. Okay? So now at this time, teachers, if your classes seem to be lagging or you need more time, you can go ahead and pause this. If not, we'll forge ahead. So, we've gotten these big rivers done. We haven't even labeled them. We've just begun to trace them so we know where they are. Now, we need to take care of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lakes that are super important in this. With the same color that you use to do the rivers, you're going to shade the lakes. So right here, this huge body of water, which you could probably guess is Lake Superior. Okay. I chose to have my lakes with this little cross hatching in there so they kind of stand out a little bit more. But I'd like you to go ahead and, at least at the very start, outline the edge of the lake with your chosen pencil or crayon. Okay. Outline the whole lake. I was teaching my son how to color neatly. He's in kindergarten. And the key is to outline it first and then go ahead and color it in after that. After you've outlined it, please try and color all the same way. So notice I'm kind of going from this southwest to northeast direction the whole way. And I didn't even color all of it right now. But at the very least, outline it, and then when I'm done talking, you can finish coloring. That's Lake Superior. The next lake we're going to do up here, the very top of the smokestack of Minnesota, is Lake of the Woods. Absolutely beautiful lake. Now, be very careful that you don't color in this whole thing because there's actually a piece of land up there. But you just need to color this region right here. Now, the lake is much bigger. Some of it goes into Canada, but I'm just doing the lakes in Minnesota. Okay, down here we have Mille Lacs Lake, or Lake Mille Lacs, however you want to say it. Once again, color that in neatly. So we've colored Lake Superior, we've colored Lake of the Woods, we've colored Mille Lacs. And then over here, I need you to color, or at least go around these two black blobs. I'd like you to color, make sure that they can tell if this is a lake. That's Lake Traverse, which is the start of the Red River. And then color Big Stone Lake, which is the start of the Minnesota River. So once again, Lake Superior color, Lake of the Woods, Mille Lacs, Lake Traverse, and Big Stone. Now I know there's many more lakes in Minnesota. I could the Upper and Lower Red Lake. I could Leech Lake. I just chose these lakes because they have historical significance. Okay. So now, as you're sitting there at your desk, you should have gotten at least the start on this, and you have now a purpose and you know what to color. The next job is to label. Now, that's probably the most difficult part of this whole thing. And it's at this point that you probably want to grab a pen, black or a blue pen. And I can't emphasize this enough. Neat handwriting. Now, I don't have the neatest handwriting in the world, but I try when I'm doing this. Ideally, when you're doing a map, you should try and keep the words level, as level as possible. You don't want words going up and down. You don't want words curving. Um, Ideally, keep the words level like this. And if you have to use an arrow to point to where the object is, great. You also want to spread your information out. Don't glom it all together on spot. It makes it overwhelming. So, if you go to the sheet that I gave you today, which looks like this, we are just going to work on the things above the line today. Do not get freaked out by all this stuff down here. We're just doing these 6 rivers and 4 lakes for today. We've already colored them in. All we need to do now is label them. Okay. So, we should also take the time to make sure they're spelled correctly. So if I were you, I would have this map instruction sheet on your desk, and I would have, of course, my map. And then I would try to refer to this presentation to help me fill things in. So I'll put the presentation back up here. And this is just like the top half of the state. Go ahead. Instructors, if you want to pause this, you can. I'll take a little pause here, but if the students can go ahead and label, I would start from the top and go down. Label Lake of the Woods. Label Rainy River. Label the Big Fork River, the Little Fork River, the Red River, the Mississippi River. Oh, too far. And then maybe label Mille Lacs Lake right here. While you're writing, I'd like you to notice a couple other things. There are some arrows on here already. Now, these arrows indicate the direction that the river flows. Now, we all know that water flows downhill. But in looking at this map, we see that water is flowing at least three directions in this state. Now, on this slide, you've got rivers that are going north, which is odd. Not very many rivers flow north. The vast majority flow to the south or southwest. We've got, of course, the Mississippi River right here, which flows south all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. And then these rivers up here, the Big Fork and the Little Fork River, they also flow north. So for a person who knows our geography and what the land looks like, there's something kind of weird going on up here in this area right here to make the rivers flow three different ways to three different spots. Now, I'll really cook your noodle by telling you this. There's rivers over here along Lake Superior that end up going into Lake Superior, and then Lake Superior ends up flowing all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. So, yeah, Minnesota is sometimes called the state with three watersheds, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Okay, so I hope you have this labeled. If you don't, it's okay. You can always plug in later, or I'll show you at the end of this how you can use your other sources to help finish this. Here's the bottom half of the state. You've got Lake Traverse here, Big Stone Lake here, the Minnesota River here. We've already probably labeled Mille Lacs Lake. And if you could, please, one more time, label the Mississippi River again over here. That is a big river, covers lots of the state. And some people forget that the border over here between Wisconsin and Minnesota, and then later on down here in Iowa, is actually the Mississippi River. So let's label it again over in this region. So we've gotten all this information in this area right here onto your map. That's what we want. Okay. Now I don't want to push much further ahead because I'm looking for neatness here, neatness in your handwriting and neatness in your coloring. One last thing, I will show you where on Google Classroom you can find more information to help fill in these maps. So if I went too fast or if your pencil broke and you couldn't keep up, you can always use these sources to help you. It's really simple. You just go back to Google Classroom and you go to the 922, which is Tuesday's work. You have the worksheet there, that paper copy that you have, and then you have two scans. One scan, this one here, is the lakes and rivers in Minnesota. Now you're going to need to open this and obviously resize it so that you can access the information. Okay. This map can sometimes be a little bit confusing because not only does it have lakes and rivers on there, it also has the topography and the elevations of the state. And we'll talk more about that. But you can still see the rivers important lakes, everything that you need is on this map. Okay. The other map right here shows what I would call the counties and then the county seat or the major city of the county. So for example, Scott County down here. Let's see if I can pull this up without having. Oh, it doesn't work. So we'll just go here to Stearns County. Sauk Center is a major city in Stearns County. Benton County, you have St. Cloud. Carleton County of Cloquet. St. Louis County of Duluth. Okay, these are important cities in each of the counties of Minnesota. So this will be useful for tomorrow's work. I just want you to know where this stuff is so that you can use these resources. So I hope that your map looks a little bit like mine. Don't freak out if it doesn't look exactly, if the colors aren't the same, but remember, color neatly, label on both sides of the river, or excuse me, not label, but color on both sides of the river to make it stand out. Label with your neatest handwriting and arrow. And let's just work on the lakes and rivers today. If we can get this done, that will be a monumental win. If you feel the need to work ahead and you want to go ahead and continue on, you'll notice that these black boxes on here refer to something. Those are actually cities. And if you look further down in your list, you will see a whole ton of cities there. If you want to begin labeling these to get a head start on tomorrow, once again, your neatest handwriting. Your neatest handwriting. Okay? So I hope this finds you at a good spot. And if there's a question, you go ahead and ask your teacher. They are more than qualified to answer. When you're done, fold this map up neatly and put it in your folder. And don't lose it. Have a great